It does help if you unmute your microphone as well.
I'm seeing your lips move, but
that was the greatest introduction. It was totally great, that introduction, and everyone missed it. Thank you for missing that introduction. It was huge. It was huge, man.
Huge.
This is the Quantum Quiz, and over on the corner there, I have with me Mr. Showmanship himself, Chris Whitpan.
Showmanship. Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a big sell.
Wow. The introduction I was doing was like rebranding myself as these types of videos as a kind of a chat show, so to speak.
Okay.
So much good. What we do. Yeah.
I like chat.
I like chat.
Yeah.
I like chat. So welcome, Chris, to the Quantum Quiz.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is kind of, I like the format. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, cool. Because I like the format too, which is, what is the format? You're probably asking, what is the format? I'm probably sounding like Trump now. I've been watching so many Trump videos. Cheeseburgers are growing out the trees now. Just totally, it's huge. It's huge. It was perfect. Anyway, I like interviews as much as the next person. Well, I like interviews as much as Chris over there. But one thing that's always interesting is to gamify these kind of interviews. And so I've created the Quantum Quiz. The Quantum Quiz is based on the TV show Quantum Leap with Sam Beckett randomly jumping into the shoes of people in the past and changing their lives, hopefully for the better. And so what I have with me today is Chris. And he's going to be my Sam Beckett. And I'm going to be posing him some questions of people that he would like to jump into. And hopefully he'll be able to explain whether it's for a good reason to change the world to be a better place, or a bad reason to make the world a worse place, or if it's just to observe from that point of view of that person in time and in history.
Now, if I'm Sam, does that make you Ziggy or Al?
I'm probably Ziggy. Computer.
Yeah, the internet's not Ziggy, and Al, you got to sit there and you got to have your thing and you got to smack it every now and then.
Oh yeah, I've got my mouse. I can smack my mouse.
There you go. Okay.
I've got nothing to stick in my mouth apart from I smoke a Centauri.
There you go.
Alondo. So before we start talking to Chris about Chris,
sure,
we're going to pose the first question, which is, if he was to Sam Beckett into someone in time in the music industry, who would it be and why?
This is tough because, the music industry, anybody who's interesting, Barry, is also a complete...
I slipped off screen, but I'm still interested. Sorry.
Just walk away. Just go.
Yeah. Talk to the hand.
Everybody in the music industry is like, there's very interesting people, but they're also like super tortured souls. So,
yeah,
it's like, it's not too many that you can kind of point at and say that would have been fun to see, or, things like that. So I really struggled. I think some of the rockabilly people from the 50s would have been cool and fun, but I kind of settled on somebody who I've always admired. And I think their journey, we don't get to see all of it, but I think it had to have been pretty amazing. And that's Peter Gabriel. So, because with Genesis and leaving that and then starting his solo, and then even the journey his solo career took, from ending up on like Passion, it's this huge sweeping arc. It's not just reinventing pop like, say, Phil Collins, who could have gone the same trajectory. He just kept doing, I'll do pop for the 70s. Now I'll do pop for the 80s. Now I'm going to do pop for the 90s. Like, it just kind of kept progressing forward. He didn't like reinvent anything or kind of get still immensely enjoyed. But, I think Peter's would have been a very interesting journey to see where he got.
Okay. So what stage of his life would you jump into just to observe?
I kind of think like that just after Salisbury Hill. So he had just left Genesis. He did his first solo, and then I think right after that first solo, I think right when he kind of realized like, hey, I can do this, and it started to kind of morph. Like it was a while before So came out.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, if he has a pop album ish, I mean, there's like 4 songs in there. I can like half of it maybe, but the other half is still kind of very soulful, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting kind of response as well. Peter Gabriel is someone that now in my later years I respect hugely for his production values. He is just such I don't know if he's a talented musician because I've never seen him behind an instrument.
Right.
He's always in front of the mic, or walking around in some really elegant costume. And I think that's what he always he introduced with Genesis, and Genesis lost that when he left.
Yep.
But I could see myself going into Peter Gabriel just to see how he produces music. And I would say around the mid 2000s, because I think Up is like one of the
yes.
Up. Getting all his album titles.
Yeah. So and Us were a little poppy. Up kind of came out of that and kind of went back to that Salisbury Hill Security kind of roots, I think, But I think he's one of those people who knows how to surround himself with talent. Yes. And I think that's any hugely successful person knows what they don't know, right? So, but you're right. Like, I don't know, like, how much is his influence? How much is written? His life is pretty opaque. I don't really know too much about it.
No, I think I remember a documentary about Genesis where he was, he would take stuff to amp his performances.
Yeah. Who didn't in that time?
Probably Phil Collins.
He was completely clean. Completely.
Yeah. But I admire him as well. I mean, Walls Without Frontiers.
Yes.
That song has been in my head since childhood. And that little whistle and the production was so out there at the time, and then other groups like Visage were doing this kind of like abstract kind of electro rock music. And okay.
The river off of Us is probably one of my favorite ones. And part of that might be just because I saw it. I didn't see many concerts in my time, and that was one. And I just remember the stage being a circle and a square.
Yeah.
And he had a long, like, kind of like connector in between the two. And when he was doing the river, there was a conveyor belt, and it kind of looked like he was just like on a skiff, just doing a stand-up paddleboard thing before it was cool, and just kind of pulling through the river it was very dramatic with very little, and I think that kind of summed him up in a nutshell. And that one, when you hear good music, Barry, doesn't it like give you chills?
Oh,
and so much of his stuff gives me chills. I love that.
Yeah. I remember about a long time ago, because I was in England at the time. I was coming back from a gig that I'd just done, and the torrential rain was whacking on the windscreen. It was pitch black. my GPS had sent me down a little quiet country alley road, and I'm listening to Peter Gabriel, Us, and then there's this really dramatic something about the noise, and the music is just like low, quiet, and then it's really loud and aggressive like a film score. And I was cacking myself as I was driving. I had to switch it off because it was so remotely scary.
I believe it. I believe it.
Cool. Okay, that's really that's perked me up. Peter Gabriel. There I was thinking I was probably the only person that still loved him after I rediscovered him after digging in the dirt. But,
no. As soon as you say that word, that bass line just pops right into my head.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that was the thing that hooked me. It was the bass line in the little guitars.
It was very rhythmic stuff, right?
Yeah.
Really love playing with rhythm.
Yeah. And of course, I can't go without saying watching the end of Wall-E and the end song. Just we watched it a couple of weeks ago. I've still got it in my head.
Yeah.
It's just that the timing of like the instruments is there's like one instrument which is playing a rhythm which is 4 bars, but there's another one playing an 8-bar rhythm, and so they're looping over each other. So they go out of sync, but then they come back in, and then they go out of sync. A bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach.
Yeah, I appreciate it on one level. It's really cool to hear your level of appreciation, being somebody who can actually make music. So
yeah, okay. So I could go on and on. We're gonna have to move on.
All right.
You really bring out the passion in me.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Okay. The next question. We're going to do this in a bit more of a game showy style because you're going to need pen and paper, and you're going to need to treat this game as like Pictionary. So this next person that you're going to Sam Beckett into is someone that shapes the board gaming spheres of our world. Maybe a designer, maybe a producer, or maybe an artist.
Okay.
And you're going to draw an image which is going to point me in the direction of maybe the game or the designer or the publisher or whatever. And maybe those of you who are watching live might want to try and guess as well which game, which designer, and which producer. Let's blow you up full screen.
All right. Wow. You kind of put me on the spot here. All right. I like it. All right. I kind of feel like I need the down-facing camera, but I didn't plan ahead well enough.
Oh, don't worry. You don't need a down-facing camera here. We're just digging in the dirt.
Nice. I sense a theme for the rest of the show.
Yeah. I'm going to sledgehammer it home.
Yep. And all right,
I've guessed what it is already.
Have you?
No, sorry.
I'd be impressed if you did. I fancy myself an amateur artist, so now I'm, of course, going to be upset with myself. So my first clue.
Okay, so we have, was it 2 hands breaking bread, breaking gold, breaking... Okay. 2 hands pulling something apart and breaking it. With diamonds as a card. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So that'll be clue number 1.
Let me carry on guessing. Diamonds. Maybe I should call up Board Game Geek. Give me some help. Good old Board Game Geek. There you go, Scott Alden. I'm helping you out here. I'm getting you some more clients. And Scott and Chris is drawing away there. Did you draw that T-shirt?
Yeah, this was I do a little con at my house.
Yeah.
Once a year. So this was the giveaway a couple of years ago.
Okay.
All right. There's the second clue.
Okay, so it's a castle with some balls coming out, or fireballs. Interesting.
All right, and then last, I'll give you one more.
Fireball Island, probably. That's what it looked like. It looked like Fireball Island. There I am. For those of you who forgot who I am, I'm here. Anyone got any ideas?
All right, and then the last one will be that one up in the corner.
Okay, so that is colors. I'm presuming that's the colors. There's a primary.
I might have done it wrong. Completely possible.
Or it's the sign for toxic or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. It's like if you ever play just one, you ever play with people and they're like, it all makes sense except for that one. I'm like, ignore that one then. Said, get your guess, and then if it fits, use that as the check. That's what you do.
Right.
So,
it's coming together. I'm cheating a bit. I was having
okay.
a quick look on Board Game Geek. Go to Board Game Geek, and I'm going to say that you probably think it's Rob Davio.
Bingo! You are correct, sir. Well done. Well done.
So why would you jump into Rob Davio to see?
Well, I feel like he kind of has like a Jeff Engelstein brain, like, but one I can actually understand. So like, I really just want to kind of, get in there and just kind of, because I imagine this is a man who has a designer diary and has like 50 things floating around his head at any given time. Was probably one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had. He was a joy, a gracious person, and he loves food and eating great food. So, there's just so many different things, that, and I would like a couple questions answered as far as, where, if we take game design as a thing where a designer usually makes a big mess and then trims it down to its final form, what was the original plan for like Pandemic Legacy? Like, what was the huge overreaching story arc that he originally wanted to say and plan on doing, but then had to scale back to fit the contents of the box and keep the tree manageable, the decision tree manageable, right?
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of, I think he would be one of the more interesting people. I would like to jump into somebody like a Kwanchai Moria or an Ian O'Toole just to kind of go through their artistic process. But I couldn't really draw them. So I kind of went with Rob. I'll be honest. You got to play the game a little bit.
Yeah. So you admire his designing skills.
Yeah. He's a very kindred spirit in a lot of regards. I think like in a Freaky Friday situation, I think we could both pull off each other's lives for like a day or two and then it would just fall apart. Sure. But I think we could at least like fake it a little bit.
Okay. So do you really admire his designs? What's your favorite game of his?
I like some of the classic stuff. I like what he did with like Risk Legacy and things like that. But really, Pandemic.
That's already a classic, is it?
It kind of is. I mean, you figure it's already 15 years old almost, right?
Wow.
But just the fact that he took, for me, Risk. So Risk is my game from childhood that has always stuck. It's the one that like I used to play with my dad, my brothers, and it has a lot of great memories. So when the Legacy came along, it just kind of said, you can still do this thing you love. Now we're just going to mess with it, which was pretty cool. But I think, Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was such a benchmark that now everything else is kind of, compared to for very good reason. Because, I mean, no game made me more angry and downtrodden in October than any other game I've ever played. It was because, of course, the thing happened to my thing. So it was like, whatever. But it, I just, to get so emotional about what a game did to me, as opposed to me doing it to a game, that just, not many times do we get an emotional response like that out of a game. And I'm really hoping to kind of get a group together to do Betrayal Legacy, because I've heard very similar things out of that. So I hold judgment, but right now, honestly, it's that one. I just think it's so cool, and what it did was very unique, and I was just propelled to play that game. I can't really say that about many other legacy systems and things like that.
Okay, so you love the compulsion to rip things up and destroy things.
I don't have any. I throw out my expansion boxes. When I just did it the other day, I'm like, I got the Tricarion collector upgrade and like they gave you a new rule book. I'm like, old rule book, right in the trash, right in the bin. Didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. Maybe to a fault because maybe I'll throw out something I need.
When you have your second kid, the first one out the door. I got the second one now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my nature, though. Out with the old, in with the new, and I tend to do that very easily, which is maybe not a good thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a good thing because otherwise you just live in clutter. I mean, I'm lucky my wife is much like you. It's like out with the old, in with the new. So every now and again, something will disappear. And she go, I threw it out because it was old, it was rubbish, we never use it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, fine. I live with it now.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll play a legacy game.
Yeah, you kind of need like a safe word or a safe place where you can just kind of say like, just never touch this corner of this room.
Yeah. Well, this whole room. She does not touch this room.
No, like I'm a restaurant manager in a previous life. I'm trying to leave that work now. But whenever I would start a new job, going into the office of the former manager, they're never as organized as me. Yeah. Right? Never. And it's just gutting it. I mean, the last time I did that, I must have literally thrown out like 5 trash cans worth of stuff.
All right.
You know, that didn't need to be there, frankly. I mean, like record keeping issues aside, it was just a lot of junk. Clean it up.
And did you have the same with the staff? Did you like just throw the rubbish ones out and replace them with new ones?
Sometimes. Usually, you know, what I find is that the staff a lot of times genuinely wants to do well because the staff in a lot of cases is older than the manager managing them. Like they've been in that position even longer than the manager who just left. Yeah. So they're probably more loyal to the restaurant itself than they ever were that person. So they tend to be pretty good. Sometimes you just need to realign them a little bit. But if the manager let them run ruckshod, every now and then you do have to kind of gut the staff. And it's never fun. But my approach is you make the people who don't belong there uncomfortable by bringing in the people who do. And then those people just tend to leave on their own. Yeah. I'm not usually like, you 10 people suck. See you later. Like, no, like these 12 people are awesome. I love them. I'm going to show I love them. And you eventually will feel uncomfortable and not want to be here anymore.
Yeah. And also you need to encourage them to try and be the good people that you want to work with. And hopefully they want to work with you. And then if they don't want to work with you and they don't like what they want, what they're doing there, they will just walk away and
it's all exactly. Ultimately, it's their choice, right? Like this is the way it's going to be. You know, I'm not giving 8 tables to one server. You don't have to be in the restaurant business to know that that's a bad idea. Okay. You know, we're going to cut it back to 4. So this is the way it's going to be. Like this is how people get served well. I mean, yes, you think you just cut your money in half, but probably not if you can do your job right. Because you weren't getting tipped from 8 people, that's for sure.
And whereas, you know, better control over a smaller group of clients. Then there's the revisiting and the regular client base. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we are now going to move on to the part of the show where. Well, let's talk about your new game that you got coming out. No, let's not talk about
my new game All Night that I've got coming out.
Yes, you run a chat show.
I do
on YouTube called Game All Night.
Yep.
Would you like to explain how did this come about? Why did you want to do this?
So I've been gaming since 2012, which feels like a long time ago now, right? I mean, it's like board game years, that's like 49 years, right? Because it's 7 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's when I started as well. So it's like, it's a long time.
I think so, because I remember watching you early on, and I believe you got me to buy that little French game, Timeline, which I think everybody here mispronounces as Timeline.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you meant that.
So no. So yeah, it was kind of around the same time, and I kind of knew I always wanted to do something within this space, like whether it was a podcast, and I think I even recorded a few dummy podcasts once upon a time. And I'm like, no, I'm not adding anything to the conversation. I'm not going to start a review show because I didn't, I don't feel my voice is important enough to do a review show, frankly. And I'm like, well, there's already 58 people doing one now. Even that was back then. Now it's like ridiculous. You can't throw a rock without hitting somebody who does a board game review. So I'm like, you know what? No, I don't. And nothing really piqued my interest. I met Gary Pope one year at Gen Con, and we kind of started chatting in the fall about, doing a show. Oh, I'd like to do something. And I kind of all of a sudden came up with an idea to do Space Ghost Coast to Coast and do like a late night talk show. And that's kind of where it came from. And we kind of put it together. And we originally really wanted to do the Space Ghost thing. But when you realize how much work goes into that, it's like, unfortunately, A, I don't think I'm that funny. But B, it's just like to double write everything. And then it was borderline impossible. So we just kind of try to be goofy and funny, but we kind of settled on just like the late night talk show format. And that's kind of what we do now, where, I try to talk to everybody in the industry, and instead of being a reviewer or anything like that, really, I just focus on being like an ambassador. I really want something for people to sit down with a significant other and just kind of learn something about some people is ultimately what it is.
Yeah. So if you're interested in Rob Daveru, you can go and watch your video and have a real long, because they're quite long shows as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I try to keep them at about like 45 minutes to an hour. It really takes, think about if you go in for a job interview, Barry, and maybe it's been a very long time since you've had to do this, because as far as I know, you've always done the job you've done. I do remember when you moved to France, though, so wasn't that? But they
imagine that job interview. Bonjour, bonjour. Travailler avec nous. Bonjour.
Like, do I even try to speak French, because they're going to think I do, and it's just going to be right? But they last a basic interview with somebody usually lasts about an hour. And the reason is because it takes 20 minutes just to break down any walls and to get people comfortable. And I believe that I'm pretty good at making people like not feel like they're on the spot. Like, I try not to ask crazy questions and off the wall stuff like, what musical artist would you, that might be. I don't ask deep questions. I mean, occasionally we go there, but so that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, so that's about my runtime. And then what we do is, a little peek behind the curtain. We then keep them around, cut the show, and then start over and play a game with the guest. And I try to keep that at about half an hour or so. Sometimes it's a main game. Sometimes it's just something goofy, and funny for the guest. But, try to have some fun and get to see them play something different.
Okay.
That's a big explanation. Yeah,
it is a big explanation. But, that's what I'm doing this for, to find out a bit more about you. And maybe other people will tune into your show and see all the wonderful guests that you've had over the past, like Paul Grogan, and you've had Daryl Andrews, James Hudson, Mark Street, Eric Summerer. You've spoken to a lot of people.
Yeah, I really have. And it's been, Berkey's even been on, both before he was a sponsor and after. So that's, I just want to try and get anybody who's kind of involved in the business and really get a nice, diverse list of people. That's my goal.
Yeah. And it's a nice format as well. It's like, I almost want to walk down those stairs and sit on that sofa next to you.
If you come to PAX U, you're welcome to.
Yeah. Okay, that's a possibility.
There you go.
So, talking of sponsors, I have a sponsor, and guess who it is?
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
It's almost like we know him or something.
Somehow, he knows everybody.
He does. He needs to get like a jerky drying rack accessory for the top of the Game Topper and then kind of do some co-branding.
Yeah, just put it underneath, and then you can like nibble at the same time.
Little jerky ledge. You could use it for pasta or jerky. You need multitaskers, Barry. You can't just have like a one-trick pony. It just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work at all. Oh, dearie me.
I do hope. I did ask him for a couple of things, and one of them, I'd love to get like a reversible mat that would do, like he has the poker. I'd love to have one that was a craps table.
Right.
And then flip over and then like either be a poker or a roulette. Because I think, those tables are like perfect for casino nights and things. I think
they are. They do have that kind of feel. Yeah. You can imagine like a roulette wheel being dug out on one end and then you're sliding chips over.
Yeah.
Not that you can see it. Well, you could see it. I didn't.
Everybody's got like 52 mat ideas nowadays for the poor guy. So I'm like, well, pick and choose your battles.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to more quantum leaping, you're going to quantum leap into a star director or an actor from a TV or a movie show, or a TV. Yeah, you're going to be one of them. It's going to be huge as well. Okay. I got to guess which person that you are going to jump into. And obviously we'll talk about why you want to jump into them, but also the other reason that why you're jumping into them is because you want to see a board game based on this property of whatever they are involved in.
All right. I like it.
As we say that, this is another game. So if you're, again, live watching, try and guess along with me, because Chris is going to give me 5 one-word answers, which will point me to a person related to an IP, which will then lead to a board game. It's very long-winded.
It is.
In my head, it's so quick and rapid, and I know. Just
believe me. Welcome to my life. All right. All right. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So heist.
Okay. So it could be Robert De Niro.
Okay. Gold.
Could be Spandau Ballet. No.
All right.
Heist. Gold. Go on. Carry on. Third.
All right. Europe.
I haven't seen the Ocean's 11, 12, 13 films. Could be one of those.
All right. Minis.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there and I'm going to say Michael Caine.
British was my last clue.
Okay, so you want to jump into Michael Caine. Why would you want to jump into that prestigious gentleman?
The IP is The Italian Job, and I just love his kind of 50s character. I think, Mark Wahlberg did a decent job updating it for the current time, sure, but that original, he's just so smarmy and cocksure and just kind of, he's like, good, we're going to make it at all costs, and I believe in it, so this is just going to happen whether you like it or not. Like, I love that kind of attitude.
I think he had that a lot through his early career. He was only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. I can't do Michael Caine all of a sudden.
It was much better
for some bloody strange reason. Look deep enough.
It's that nasal on the high inflections that you get really well. So
yeah. But he always had that cocksure character in his repertoire. So The Italian Job is a game that you would like to see.
Yeah. So
what kind of mechanics would it have?
So I'm kind of thinking I want to see a racing game that actually does car chases well. Okay. We have a lot of things right now that kind of do, like Escape Plan, I think does the okay, we've done a thing, let's get out. I think it does that pretty well. I think Getaway Driver is a fun little card game that kind of does the tete-a-tete pretty well. Okay. And that's fun. But I'd actually like to see something either in the lines of like a Formula D or, maybe card driven. It doesn't have to be dice driven, but where you're actually your map is just a nice long piece and you have to get from A to B, and it's a one versus many. So, at times, maybe when you turn a corner and there's no car behind you, your car disappears and you kind of go to a, movement on a board. And then if they spot you, you have to put your car back out. Like I can kind of see this kind of cat and mouse thing, like being able to play out. And I think that would be awesome. And if you just kind of had like a nice long map, or maybe you could have expansions like, oh, it's the Italian Job. And that's what you open with. But then it's also, oh, here's Monaco. Oh, here's, Paris. And you you could do different jobs in different cities and give you different feels and vibes. I think that would be a blast. And of course, it has to be like a mini. Right? Because
So when you say one versus many, what you're saying? One is the mini driver and the many other police, or vice versa?
Yep. And so the multiple players, I could see them being police. So maybe there's an air unit. Maybe there's ground units. Perhaps somebody gets to play the public. So you can maybe do it kind of like Vast, where somebody plays the city. That's an actual breathing, living thing, and kind of move crowds around. And maybe somebody could control traffic lights, know.
Yeah, and put those ramps in and put those trains coming across and do the Dukes of Hazzard thing.
Yep. And if you have like 5 people, 2 people could be on the driver. And maybe he could have, some help. So maybe that is the person who runs around and sets up a van for you to drive into and change cars. Or, I could just see where this could turn into, hey, here's the base game. Oh, look, we're going to expand and add this little bit. Oh, now you can add a 5th, I think there's a lot to it. I think it would be a blast.
Hey, it does sound like it. Because, I don't know any kind of games like that. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what mechanics like the mini driver has to negotiate these maybe sharp bends or dodging pushchairs which accidentally roll into the middle of the road. And
think about it. Like the one could be like inside a city, the other could be like the side of a mountain, with the winding roads down the mountaintop. And I think it could be really interesting, and the material that you could use is immense, right?
Yeah,
because you're just based on where you go and the maps you draw.
Yeah, and again, you could just do a generic map, not a modular map. Sorry, so like you're always moving the pieces and moving the map and putting a new piece down, and then it turns. Yeah, a bit like Mississippi Queen does. It's just like you haven't got a big enough table to put the whole map on, but the map
that could be like the 3rd game in the series, right? Where everything else is like, here's a board, go, and then the next one is you have to flip tiles because you don't know the lay of the land now, and now you have to, like, as soon as you enter a tile, you have to flip it and deal with whatever's on there. I think you need people used to the system before you start throwing them under the bus.
Yeah,
but no, I could totally see that. But the problem with the modular boards is it's one thing that kind of keeps Snowtails from coming out, but Downforce keeps coming out, right? Because
it's one map.
Right. It's just drop it, shuffle cards, go, right? As opposed to, all right, let's start laying this out. And, I think that little bit of setup really kind of can drag a game down. And I think that, there's something to be said for maybe you fold out a board and maybe it has a brother that, like, once you complete this section and escape that board, you start the next board.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm an idea
You're not
guy.
a designer. Yeah. I'm the same, an idea guy. Okay. So that was the Italian Job as a board game. That would be great. That sounds interesting. Sounds like my cup of tea.
I like it.
Okay, so the last question is, if Chris could Sam Beckett into anybody, who would it be?
Anybody. So
Yes.
like,
and what would you change?
So I think my philosophy on jumping is not, to fix what went wrong to make it right. Like that whole thing is, I'm more of an observer. Like if I jump into the past, I want to observe something rather than, mess with stuff. And maybe it's the whole, fallacy that we're told about, time travel, that you can't touch anything, the butterfly effect and all that.
The butterfly effect,
yeah. So, it's also, this is kind of akin to the who do you want to have dinner with, dead or alive, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that you're in the person, so you don't get to interact with them.
Yeah, but you could say, I'd like to be in Stan Laurel just so I can hang out with Oliver Hardy.
Exactly. So I think you have to kind of do that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, where I went with this one was I'd like to jump into my grandfather.
Okay.
And it's purely selfish because, it's one of those things that he died when I was 6 years old, so 5 years old. So I didn't really get to know him, but all the stories about the Colonel are kind of crazy. Like he ran the port of Philadelphia during World War II. So one of the major outbound ports and things like that. So I think I'd really like to get to know him. And, I never got that chance. So for me, that would kind of be it. I mean, yeah, you could pick from all the historical figures and stuff, but history never really held it for me. But, I do have a lot of questions about personal history and things like that. So.
Okay, that hasn't, is it information that hasn't been passed on from your family, or was it
not really?
You just want a bit more meat on your bone from what you've been told,
right? And these things are also done through rose-colored glasses, right? Like Dad would talk about the Colonel mowing the lawn in a tie and jacket, like literally, and things like that. And like unfortunately, Dad passed years ago, so I never really got the chance to kind of. You realize a little too late in life the things you should have been doing and asking. Yeah. And my grandmother was born in 1900. She made it to 99 and a half. Okay. Wow. But idiot me being 18, 19 years old, I had no idea what I was. I mean, think about what that person saw, right? I mean, it's same thing with my grandfather because he was born around 1900 as well. I mean, they saw like the car come to life, air travel, the changeover from steam to, just that had to have been amazing. And it was a squandered thing. If I have one regret, it was I didn't, drill my family more when I should have.
Yeah. I kind of, I think that's something that everyone feels when they get to a certain age. I mean, I feel it. I wanted to pressure my dad a bit more about learning new languages because my dad apparently could speak 3-4 languages when he was only 5 years old. Wow. And it would have been, it'd been nice if he'd passed some of that on because he used to speak Maltese to his mom and Italian to his dad. But none of the family got any of that, unfortunately. And that would have been nice to have like another flower in my cap, another language to talk. And I could then probably communicate with my relatives in Italy, in Malta, maybe go to Malta and visit Richard Ham. And Richard Ham's gone.
Yes, you can go. I think they turned his apartment into a preserve. So I think you can go in there and you can still see the glass table he used to film on. You have to be respectful of the chickens that, some lady comes and tends in the backyard.
And there are fragments of glass everywhere.
Apparently Pablo runs it. Some guy named Pablo. No. I love Richard. I'm glad he's stateside, but now, unfortunately, the man's too busy to catch a hold of. But he's, no, but you're already think about this, though. You already, Barry, know 100% more languages than 95% of Americans. So you're already ahead of the game.
Well, that's not true, because Americans can speak English and they can read rules in American.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
Because
true.
all the rule books have an American flag on it, not an English flag, even though it's like an English language.
Americans can't even understand people speaking English. What are you talking about? Like,
I know.
You go to Australia or you go to England, and they're completely like, whoa, slow down. So we're horrible in that regard, but
Yeah. Oh. Well, that kind of brings us to I don't know, sour note.
Well, I think a profound one. I think,
yeah.
But who would everybody else pick? It's like, the easy one. I'd like to, maybe sit with Monet or something like that. That could be great. But at the same time, where do my questions lie? And they tend to lie a little closer to home. Like I'd like to. And here's the dumb thing. I have no kids, so I'm not like learning this for anybody else. It's really only my self-edification that I want to know any of this stuff for.
You're going to take it to the grave with you.
I don't even think I'm getting a grave, Barry. That's it. I'm just like, just put me in a ball of something and throw me out in the sea. Because why have one? No one's going to visit it. It's crazy, but it's That's the funniest part but I don't have this big, like, I don't have an ancestry.com account or anything like that, but it's more just who that's not around would I like to get to know better. And that's probably one that hits the list. Cause I have like maybe one, maybe two memories about the man. So that's kind of where I fall.
Yeah. That's very poignant of you.
Sorry.
So, that's okay. No, it's lovely. I mean, again, when you talk to other people, they kind of touch nerves in you and feelings and emotions that you'd forgotten about. And obviously, you've stirred up emotions about my granddad, because my granddad was responsible for an oil platform in Egypt, and then they were kicked out of Egypt when my dad was very, very young, and that's when they moved to England, and that history happened. But it had been interesting because my dad kept telling to me that his granddad still owns land in Egypt. He's still got the documents and everything. So, and my granddad was apparently rich. He had lots of,
interesting.
But where they've been kicked out because there was like the law had changed, or there was a revolution or something, I will never know. Nope. I would never inherit that money.
Yeah.
But
so it's just, past is weird, and there was a different time back, even as far as like the 40s and 50s and stuff, when our grandparents were in their heyday.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining me, Chris.
This was a blast. This was a lot of fun. You made me think, Barry. And for you that might not be a big deal, but 10 a.m. here, that's heavy lifting pretty early in my morning.
You can try and get me on one of my mornings then, can't you? With your talk show, Game All Night.
There you go. Yes, we definitely will have you on soon for sure.
Okay. So where can people find you, Chris, apart from YouTube, Game All Night? Anywhere else?
So the pretty much we are Game All Night Show, and night is spelled NITE, everywhere. So that's going to be the YouTube, the Facebooks, and you can usually directly interact with me on Twitter. I run that account. That's pretty much the primary account I do. So I have a blast there. We release our show every other week is the main show, and then we do the game in between. And it's available as a podcast if those of you can't catch video at work or in the car or whatnot too.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for Chris. Poke yourself in the eye. And I'll see you maybe all next week with another quantum quiz. A quantum quiz and a new guest to Sam Beckett with. So thanks for watching. Ciao for now. Remember to play nicely with each other.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia would be quite nice. So